Welcome back to Inside the Helmet. My name is Michael, and joining me today is my dad.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. We currently find ourselves in a bit of an interesting position in terms of the sporting world, at least as football fans, because football season's over. And
Boo.
yeah, I know obviously it was still over last week, but last week we had the Super Bowl fresh on our minds to talk about. But now we don't even have that. So what do? Well,
Well, one thing we do is we sign up to coach extreme flag football in the spring, and
you
that
do
starts
that.
in,
I
in,
don't.
in about that starts in about a month.
Nice.
So football's year round here in
Mm-hmm.
Texas. Um,
That's very true. Well, seeing as this football season has come to a close and everybody in the country is transitioning into their off season in one way or another, for a select few of certain ages, well, whether that is the age of a high school senior or that of, well, you could be a few different ages with how spread out college football is, if you're graduating from that. But my point is, there are a lot of football players either currently in high school or currently in college that are about to not be. They
and
are
hoping
preparing.
hoping to go to the next level. Yep.
They are preparing specifically for a transition upwards in the career ladder of, well, their football career, whether that is trying to get recruited to play in college, or if they're one of the lucky few, hoping to get drafted into the NFL in a couple months' time. And we want to give a little bit of insight because I, as a college football player, have gone through that transition, at least from the high school to the college level. So I certainly know what that was like a few years ago for myself. And
Yeah. All those
uh,
camps.
yeah, yeah, a lot of camps. For anyone who is maybe a little unfamiliar with the recruiting process, how it works to get recruited as a high schooler to go play in college, because you might think, oh well, I'm just a lowly 16, 17-year-old kid. How do I get the University of Alabama to notice me?
Huh.
How do I
Well,
get these
that's a
coaches that you see on TV giving press conferences to pay attention to little old me?
well, that's a
Well,
different question, though. First of all, if it's Alabama or one of the big names,
yeah.
they recruit differently, and there's only a handful of those, and they go out and they know about you. You know, if you're rushing for 250 yards every game of your high school career and scoring 5 touchdowns, they know about you. They'll come get you. You don't you don't really send them tape. This is not like it was 40 years ago.
Okay, then maybe not Alabama. Maybe what's like a smaller northern Colorado.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. How do I get the attention of a school in general? Well,
Yeah.
very very good place to start, and where we kind of started. Um, well, we actually started with a recruiting service.
We did.
Actually.
There's some out there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you take your high school tape and you get it to them, and they put it together with music behind it or whatever. And I mean, it's an online app essentially
Hmm.
that you use, and coaches, not Alabama and not USC and not the University of Texas, but
Yeah.
smaller schools who are trying to find those diamonds out there, will use that app. And we, I mean, we, you remember this wasn't too terribly long ago. We would connect and get comments from and interest from coaches out there who were looking for somebody like you. So
Yeah, and in my case, it was often a coach that I had never heard of, and a place that I had never heard of, in a state that I had never heard of. Maybe not that last part.
yeah,
Um,
so yeah, the I was surprised. I was trying to remember how many camps you and I drove to around the state of Texas,
Hmm.
just trying to, first of all, go see the campus and
Of
meet the
course.
coaches ourselves,
Hmm.
uh, and see which ones we might or might not be interested in, but also kind of see if we could make a connection and make an impression. So tell me, other than all the driving that we did and all the miles we put on the car,
Hmm.
going to these camps, tell me your recollection of, because to me they kind of, most of them had the same kind of a feel and a same kind of a purpose. Some of them had more people at the camp than others, but
Absolutely.
um, uh, yeah, just kind of for anybody who doesn't know how all that
Hmm.
works and what to expect. Maybe there's a high school senior out there who's going, yeah, I'm signing up for some camps. I don't know what to expect. Maybe they're even a quarterback like you.
Well, I would
Tell them
certainly
what to
hope.
expect.
I would certainly hope to anyone out there that you're not waiting until your senior year to finally go to camps after the conclusion of your senior season. That's a bit late. Thankfully,
Yeah,
we were still honestly kind of late to the party,
yeah,
but we went to all of the camps that I attended around Texas between my junior and senior years over that summer.
right.
So that thankfully we weren't that late. I think if you're still at the camp going stage as a graduating senior, then you're a little bit behind. Admittedly, I know it's a little harsh, but there's really no other way to put it. The recruiting process nowadays starts honestly when you're a sophomore.
Yeah.
That's
And
when that window actually opens and they're allowed to talk to you.
they'll tell you which coaches from what schools are going to be at a camp,
Hmm.
and you show up and they have a series of drills.
Hmm.
You know, you're in shorts and t-shirts. I mean, you're not hitting or anything. And for
Hmm.
quarterbacks, it was okay. Let's go throw some passes and do all this and run you through different drills. And they give you a cool T-shirt, either representing the camp or representing one of the schools who was sponsoring the camp. You've got a closet full of cool T-shirts that you
Yeah,
know.
most of them were T-shirts. I think a couple of them gave me almost like I was a marathon event, like a little clip-on paper with a number.
Yeah,
Just so they can identify you, because ordinarily they'll have a couple hundred kids there if it's a pretty big camp, and so obviously they need some way to actually identify these kids that they've never seen before in their life. So,
right.
from my memories, because this was wow, coming up on like 4 years ago. Um, it is it honestly I compare it to a job interview. Obviously, a lot more sweating, but
Sure.
a lot more fun, but also a lot of pressure because you're, at least in my case, you're having to perform at something that you've kind of been doing your whole life, at least in some capacity, but now in front of an audience that you feel like is judging you intently, more so than even the audience members at your games. And so, you know, there is an amount of pressure having all those eyes on you. But hopefully, if you're a quarterback or any other position in football, you're used to that by now, and so you're able to kind of shove that off to the side.
I did find that from, I was just a dad in the stands watching all of this, but it seemed to me like if it was a camp that you were invited to, the coaches found you online and kind of sent you a, hey, we're having this camp, we want you to come out,
Hmm.
then they were probably going to pay a little bit more attention to you and talk to you and get to know you. There were a few camps that we went to where we didn't know any of the coaches. We were just like, hey, let's go up there and show them what you can do. And they were always polite,
Hmm.
but it seemed to me like the coaches kind of had an agenda. We're here to watch this guy and this guy and this guy. And maybe if you did something eye popping off the charts at one of those camps, then suddenly now they know your name. But I mean, was that kind of your recollection?
I very much say so, and I don't blame them. Obviously, being in that position where sometimes I was kind of that just a face in the crowd. The coaches weren't necessarily looking specifically for me all the time. Yeah, I mean, it can be a little difficult knowing that I really need to stand out in order to get any real sort of recognition there, or else kind of fade into the background of the camp, and it was almost like I was never there. But I get it. I mean, if I was a coach, then I would certainly have my agendas too, just to be able to keep my head on straight.
Well, if you're a big name recruit going to a big school, I mean, let's use Arch Manning as
Hmm.
a prime example. Arch Manning, I don't know if he went to camps. He certainly didn't need to. University of Texas called him up and said, "We've seen your tape. We've been to your games. We've met you and your family, and so we want to offer you and we're going to fly you out to come take a visit to our campus and meet you at the airport." This is a whole different thing. And I mean, so few ever get that treatment. There's
Yeah.
so many more people out there playing at smaller schools, and they're playing mostly because they love the game and they're not ready to quit after
Mhm.
high school because it goes by so fast. And they just want to continue playing for 4 more years in college no matter where that is. And it's not even, well, maybe somehow I'll make the NFL. I know there's Kurt Warners out there and people who can pull it off and do it, but um, I don't know. Recruiting is such a different thing. We actually did go to a recruiting day at the University of Texas because it's here in town, and
Mhm.
I thought that'd be a wonderful experience to have for you, for me, and so we did go down there. I guess the University of Texas and schools that are like that maybe do that just on the off chance that somehow somebody has slipped through the cracks who is a mega athlete that, or maybe they just do it to be polite.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling that I remember we got after my experience at the camp there.
Yeah. It was a good time though. I
Hmm.
enjoyed that when one, we didn't have to drive that far
Yeah.
way across the state of Texas, and two, you got a cool Texas Longhorn shirt out of it, and we got to go hang out on the UT practice field, and you got to take a handful of snaps on the UT practice field, you
Hmm.
know, and run a couple of plays, out of the UT playbook from the UT coaches, and so yeah, but so there's the camps and the whole recruiting stuff that high schoolers undergo, and then there is and we'll probably talk a little bit more as we get closer to the draft about what
Of
the
course.
college players go through when they're invited to participate in different bowl games right at the end of the season, Senior Bowl and things like that, and also combines and workout days and everything else. And I think the central thing that gets the most attention happens to probably be the 40-yard dash
Of
time.
course.
Everybody wants to know how quickly you can run 40 yards. And it's always interesting because they use that as a measuring stick, but very few plays actually require a person to run 40 yards. I mean, if you're running 40 yards and you have the ball in your hand, it's a really good play. And if
Mhm.
you're running 40 yards and you're a defender, then it's a bad play from your perspective. But that's what they use as the measuring stick. And I've always thought that it's interesting how just fractions of seconds can make the difference in somebody being drafted in the first round or the fifth round. Um, and on the field, I'm trying to think of when they started this technology. It was in the early 2000s where they could superimpose one runner who had run previously against somebody else who was running a 40. And you could see, okay, this guy is, 0.15 seconds faster. And you could see what that really translated to on the screen. It was like 2.5 steps. And if you got the ball in your hands and you're running 2.5 steps faster over 40 yards, maybe they don't catch you.
Yeah.
But do you think the 40-yard dash is overrated or underrated or just about right?
I think maybe in terms of how much attention it gets from the outside, it may be a bit overrated, but because I feel like yeah, it gets hyped up on this pedestal, but it is no less an impressive feat to be good at the bench press or the 5-10-5 or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Whereas the ones who run the fastest 40 always get the most attention, and I do like the science behind the 40-yard dash and why they specifically use 40 yards. I feel like that why 40 yards? Why not 100 or why not only 20? I feel like 40 yards kind of gives you that good balance of, it gives you room to really get up to your top speed and show that off, but also it's short enough that it matters how quickly you're able to get going
yeah,
as well. And sure, you mentioned that, on an ordinary play, you're not going to run 40 yards vertically down the field, but that also translates to running not necessarily up and down the field. Maybe you're running side to side if you're a linebacker trying to meet a running back at the edge.
sure. Trying
Yeah.
to fill a gap and meet them in
Mm-hmm.
the hole. And
Exactly.
clearly, if you said running back, if you're a running back who runs a 4.4, it makes a difference versus if you're a running back who runs a 4.8.
Mm-hmm. It
The
does.
way that they're going to perceive you, if you're a 4.4 or below, you're considered to be a breakaway threat. And if you're a 4.8, you're not. You. I mean, there's been great running backs, I'm sure, in the history of the NFL who ran a 4.8. Um, but they're more of a, between the tackles, just fighting for yards and not the breakaway threat. And whenever I think about the 40-yard dash, I think about some of the people over the years who have come through and been drafted really high in the NFL. John Ross comes to mind, a
Mm-hmm.
wide receiver drafted by the Bengals. Is that right?
Bengals, yeah.
Yeah. Ran one of the fastest, if not the fastest at the time,
It was
40
fastest at
yard
the time.
40 yard dash time. Xavier Worthy has since beaten
Mm-hmm.
it. And Xavier Worthy from the University of Texas is actually a football player. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Worthy knows how to play football. The guy scored at least one, if not two, touchdowns in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And we saw him, when he played at the University of Texas. The guy is a football player who happens to be fast. John Ross was a track guy who played football. And explain to those who, I know what that means and you know what that means, but explain to anybody who maybe doesn't understand the difference between those two things.
Well, I think it should be fairly reasonable to understand that football is more than just running in a straight line as fast as you can. I mean, that is the definition of many track events. Football is a much more complicated game, not only just in what is going on the field, but what you're wearing. When you see people run the 40-yard dash, they're doing it in like the most tight aerodynamic, basically track suits
Yeah.
that they can find or that the combine makes for them to wear. But obviously, during a football game, and even just during practice, you're wearing a bunch of padding and a helmet and all that. That's gonna weigh you down. Now, not significantly because they're not very heavy, but still, they do restrict your ability to move as freely as you would do without it. And so, sure, while being able to run fast is objectively a good trait to have in most positions in football, it's far from an all telling metric of how good of a football player you'll be because that can all get thrown out the window the moment you get hit for the very first time.
The hitting is a big part, and let me add this, that although it is I think you could use the 40-yard dash to eliminate some candidates.
Mhm.
I mean, again, if you're looking for a wide receiver and you got a guy that runs a 4.4, you're going to give him a second look because you're going to say, hey, if we get the ball in his hands, if he can catch in space, he's got a chance to break through the seam and go for a touchdown. And if you have a wide receiver who runs a 5.4 seconds in the NFL, um, okay, he might be able to catch the ball and fall down, and that's about it. So you can eliminate some. But the difference, I think, between the track guy and you hit on one thing, the getting hit. Uh, just because you're fast doesn't mean that you can take a hit. That's a whole different. We could do a whole show on that and taking a hit, but it's the reaction time. A track guy has one reaction. There's a firing gun or sound or something that tells them that the race is going to start, and then it's just go full speed. In football, you're either, if you're on defense, you're trying to read the play and react and get in your position and fill your hole. If you're an offensive player, if you're a wide receiver, you're trying to figure out how to maneuver your body to get inside or outside leverage or get behind somebody. If you're a running back, everybody's running at you and you're trying to find that little gap. I still think that running back, the best trait that they can have is that little burst, the burst in a phone book to maneuver yourself one body length over in the blink of an eye, so that if you wind up taking a hit, you don't take a full on hit, and perhaps you're able to hit a crease. Track guys are not trying to dart side to side suddenly based upon what they're seeing on the track. How's that? Is that fair?
That's incredibly fair. Yeah,
Okay.
this is put
Um,
very well.
and there've been good track guys, by the way, over the years, are football players who were known as track guys, and then as it turned out, they were great football players. Just to name a few, Willie Galt from the '85 championship Bears, the wide receiver, great wide receiver, also really super fast on the track. The 49ers back then, trying to kind of emulate that, uh, sorry, I bring up all this history stuff, but it's stuck in my
Mhm.
head for a reason. I may as well share it.
Mhm.
Uh, the 49ers drafted and brought in a wide receiver named Ronaldo Nehemiah. His
Mm.
nickname was Skeets. They called him Skeets Nehemiah. He was an Olympic champion 100-meter hurdler. So he was really fast and really athletic. And he was okay as a wide receiver. He was not a bust. The biggest example, though, of a track guy who played football versus a football guy who was just fast was Bob Hayes,
Of course.
the old Dallas Cowboy, who came into the league back in the 60s and basically was one of the biggest reasons, what I've read. He's before my time, but what I've read, he was one of the biggest reasons that NFL defenses created zone defenses, because prior to Bob Hayes, it was really common for teams just to play man to man. And the defense would say, "Oh, you got a fast guy? Okay, we're going to put our fast guy over against your fast guy. And if we need to have our fast guy back up an extra 5 yards, okay." But Bob Hayes was so fast. I mean, Olympic gold medalist in the 100-meter dash, and also a football player, that he could run by people in a way that, other than modern day, and it's not even, sad to say, it's not even modern day anymore, the way that Randy Moss did. But a lot of the listeners, now, at least, even if they've never seen Bob Hayes, they've seen highlights of Randy Moss. Guy could just split defenders and just take off. So anyway, yeah, I think the 40-yard dash is it's an understanding. I understand why they do it as a metric. I don't understand why they have the offensive linemen run the 40-yard dash. That I'm never ever going to have a time with. I'm going to ask my offensive lineman to sprint 40 yards.
Mm.
Um, but
Maybe for the linemen, they should just, because they do track like how fast they're able to get to 10 yards as well. I feel
sure,
like
that's important.
they would. I feel like all the linemen would appreciate if after they hit 10 yards, they were allowed to just stop.
Sure, sure. And it's funny that they use the, you mentioned before, the bench press as a measurable.
Mm.
Um, well, if there comes a time when I don't really care a whole lot about how much bench press my quarterback can do, because
Hmm.
if very few times I'm going to want my quarterback to be on his back trying to push 300 pounds up. That
Yeah.
means he got sacked. So I think what they use that for, and the thing is, while you want to have strong pectoralis muscles and arms and triceps and biceps and all of that, I think that the best linemen, offensive linemen anyway, and probably defensive linemen, are strong in the legs.
Yeah, I was gonna say they should like bring out the squat rack instead.
Well, the squat rack, or maybe some type of a sled,
Ooh,
um,
yeah.
where it's like, okay, you've got and what I'm talking about for those who don't follow it, uh, it's literally a gigantic sled with padding on it, and you have your offensive lineman hit it and then drive with the legs, drive this sled back 10, 15, 20 yards or something like that, because that's where the blocking power comes from. Now, if you're setting up as an offensive lineman trying to pass protect, especially if you're a left tackle, you're going the opposite direction. And there should be a drill where they can set that up and see, okay, how does the left tackle? Left tackle is the highest offensive line position, of course, because they're protecting the quarterback's blind side.
Hmm.
And how well are they able to deal with the speed rushers? Because your typical left tackle is going to be a fairly tall and heavy guy with quick feet, and he can handle the bull rushers, the guys who just kind of try to rush the quarterback with strength. But the ones that give him trouble are the ones that are fast and trying to get their feet back and set up. There's got to be a way to measure all of that, and maybe that's just where I've always kind of figured that maybe NFL scouts and coaches, they just watch tape. So
Yeah,
maybe
that's
maybe
very
what
true.
happens maybe what happens at the combine is not quite as important as what we think it is.
Maybe. Maybe
And
the NFL Combine's just for the TV, the TV
it could be.
ratings, the
There
commercials.
have been plenty of guys who have blown up at the combine and done something physically freakish at one of the tests and wound up getting drafted fairly high because of it. And then you never hear from them again. They were a
Yeah.
freakish. You can be a freakish athlete and not be a good football player.
Hmm.
Not even great. You could be a freakish athlete and not. I mean, look at I'm thinking about The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. He was a good enough football player to be on a national championship football team as a defensive lineman for the University of Miami. And if you look at pictures of him back then, he was cut. He was, yeah, he had muscles and all that. I don't remember him specifically. I don't think he was like a star, and he certainly never played in the NFL.
Yeah.
But if you look at the guy, I mean, he's an athlete. It takes more than the whole point is it takes more than just being an athlete to play a sport, and that's true. I'm sure football, basketball, baseball, and name your sport. It's not just the ability to jump or run or whatever the skill may be. It takes more than that, and so whether you're high school senior trying to transition to college, or college player, whatever year, trying to transition to a professional league, I always thought it would be fun to be a scout, because
Yeah.
because having coached 20 or 30, I've lost count, youth football teams, I kind of feel like I get in there, and on the first day, I can tell you who the stud is, who this or studs, who are the guys that we're going to build the team around. Probably give me 2 hours to watch them run around on the field. I can see their leadership. I can see who's got burst. who's not afraid to hit, who's tentative. You can assess all those things really fast. Um, I guess it's probably harder though once you get the higher up that you go, because in the NFL, all those guys were studs. They were all the
Yeah.
best player on their college team. All the people in college were probably the best player on their high school team.
Yeah, I was gonna say, having also been out there for a lot of those youth football teams, either because they were my team that I was playing on, or they were another team that you were coaching. I was just out there helping. Yeah, I think as a youth coach, it's the easiest to tell because they're more spread apart. The good athletes versus the not so great ones.
Sure, sure. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of kids who play just because they're kids and they want to have fun and be
Mhm.
around their friends, and they may not even play in junior high, much less high school. We did watch in your group coming up that certainly not everybody that you played with in youth football even wound up playing high school football,
Mhm.
but there were a couple, um, and we probably, if you and I sat down and made a list, it would be the same list of guys that we knew in fifth grade that these guys were going to be studs in high school.
Yep.
So um, I don't know, interesting dynamic, but I know that there was at least one other topic we wanted to get to in tonight's show, and
Mhm.
you've developed a passion for racing, um, and I know that we were talking earlier and wanted to be sure to kind of address that. So let's turn our attention to car racing.
Yep, that darn old car racing. Oh boy, let's turn off the podcast. They're going to talk about wheels instead of footballs. No. With the it's now February, which means we are, I actually have it on my phone here. We are 15 days away from the first practice session in Australia, marking the official beginning of the F1 calendar in March. And that means that they are back on track now testing the brand new 2026 regulation cars, which are vastly different than the cars that they were used to in 2025 for that regulation cycle that started in 2022. So all new regulations mean very, very different cars, obviously, and it seems like with every subsequent regulation cycle that they're leaning more and more towards being environmentally friendly, especially when it comes to the emissions and the engines and the fuel that they use and all that. And so one new development is with these engines that they put in the cars, that they are 50% like motor engine, the way you would traditionally think of a gas powered car, and then 50% electrical battery power.
Hmm.
And after doing a lot of testing laps, they're finding that this battery power is draining incredibly quickly. Like you will run out of battery before you get to the end of a straightaway section. And so for like the second half of a moderately long straight section of track where you're going flat out, you will just start losing speed and losing power just because that battery, which makes up 50% of where your power is coming from, is just gone. It's
Are we
depleted. You have
are
to
we talking about like a hybrid situation?
essentially, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Essentially, yes. These cars are using hybrid engines to put it in layman's terms.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring this up is because many of the drivers, particularly the more seasoned drivers who've been around for longer, have driven more different cars, obviously, as F1 has changed over the years. But a particular driver who always has the spotlight on him for better or for worse. A certain Dutch driver, if you know where I'm going with this.
Could this be Max?
It would be, yes.
Yeah.
He mentioned his distaste for the cars and how he thought that the regulations themselves. I find it interesting. He specifically highlighted frustrations with the regulations as a whole, not Red Bull's specific car, which is encouraging to hear as a Max fan, hoping that he does well, hoping that Red Bull is able to build him a good competitive car. Hearing that he is not just saying, oh, my car is trash, he's saying that these regulations as a whole, every car is trash. That's good to hear. Maybe at least he will be driving the fastest piece of trash on the track. But regardless, there has been talk that obviously he is a four-time world champion, a 71 time race winner. He's done everything that a person could want to do in Formula One, the so-called pinnacle of motorsport, the highest. It is the NFL of motorsport. Just as the NFL is to football, it is the most prestigious racing league, I guess. But there are, of course, other racing series, endurance racing, NASCAR, IndyCar, all sorts of sports car driving. And Max has expressed, and he's gone out and done it, even just while being an F1 driver. He has gone out and shown that he loves to race, not just in Formula One. And when his time in F1 comes to an end, which will be on his terms because, like I mentioned, he's done everything that anyone could ever want to do. He's driving an F1 still because he wants to. And the day he doesn't want to anymore, he's going to hang his F1 steering wheel up and he's going to go pick up another one because that man was born to sit in a car and drive
And
it.
he'll give
So
his car key. He'll give his car keys to you, right?
I wish that would
Yeah.
be that would be something. My
Yeah.
point in bringing all this up though is to ask you how you would handle it. Let's say we'll take the new NFL kickoff rules that they implemented a couple years ago. For example, as a drastic rule change that many people are divided over. I personally don't like them, but that's not the point. Let's say that you're an NFL player and you really don't like this change that they've made that they don't seem to be willing to go back on and revert.
Yeah.
And let's say that obviously all of the other football leagues, like NFL Europe or whatever, not the USFL. Is it the
Canadian
USFL, the
Football League.
XFL, Canadian League, whatever, indoor football? All of those are very tiny compared to the NFL. But let's say there was a league that was not quite as big as the NFL. Let's say Canadian football was maybe like 10 times bigger than it actually is. So it's now an actual substantial football league. Basically like what the AFL was to the NFL back in the 60s or whatever, like a closer rival.
Yeah.
Well, would you consider, you know, maybe taking a step down in terms of like the prestige and like going and playing in a slightly inferior league that was more enjoyable to play in, that didn't have this rule change that you didn't like?
No.
No, you would stick around in the NFL no matter how much you thought that they were changing it for the worse.
Well, the example that you used, the kickoff rule. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not a big fan, but I also understand it.
Mhm.
So, it's just like, yeah, you want to play at the highest level with the most prestige and recognition and honestly paycheck, because if you're a professional, you've got a limited amount of time that you can participate in professional sports before your body just won't allow you to compete. And so I think as a pro football player, what is the average NFL career? 4 years, 5 years,
I think it's like
something.
3. If you
Yeah,
take into account all the like seventh round or undrafted free agents that don't even make it out of training camp.
right. So you have to. I think you have to look at it realistically and say, so where am I? I may
Mm-hmm.
desire to be a 15-year NFL player,
Mm-hmm.
inducted first ballot Hall of Famer, but but I'm honestly not. And so
Mm-hmm.
you've got this opportunity, this window of earning, compared to what the average person on the street, working 9 to 5 does, an insane amount of money. And so I think for the average NFL player who's honestly, I mean, they're enjoying the game and playing, but they're trying to hang in the league as long as they can.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different story, because I'm not giving up that paycheck and
Sure.
that earnings, because if you make millions of dollars in the NFL, even as a, not really big name player, and if you invest that wisely, you are set for life. Now, if you are a big name player who signs one of the contracts that they talk about on SportsCenter, um, I'm also not leaving the league to go take, if you have the ability to sign a $50 million contract, or because you don't like a rule or something, it's like, okay, well, I'll go play in the Canadian League and make, you know, instead of 50 million, I'll make 1.2 million. Um, the numbers don't lie.
That
So,
is very
so
true.
it would have to be, for me,
Mm-hmm.
something that was comparable, and we don't have anything comparable to the
Mm-hmm.
NFL
I
where
know
you
that
can
that's
make
why
that
it's
kind of
That's why
money.
it's a little
So
difficult to relate it to football because, unlike motorsport, where there are so many high level, prestigious racing formats to take part in, yeah, it's kind of the NFL and then the NFL's little brothers and sisters.
yeah, I mean, if you had two leagues side by side,
Mm-hmm.
and the payday was very similar and the exposure was very similar,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I think maybe you do take a stance and say, well, I
Mm-hmm.
prefer this way of playing over this way of playing. But there's an old saying, money talks and suckers walk. And as a professional athlete, you've got a very, very small window of time where you are relevant. If you go back and look 20 years ago at the Pro Bowl roster or the All Pros, this
Mm-hmm.
was the best of the best. And now a few of them made the Hall of Fame, a few of them are in the broadcast booth, and so you still hear their names. But these guys, 20 years later, unless you really follow football like we do, they're kind of, or you're a fan of the team that they, got famous playing for, they're forgotten. And so I that's when football kind of became a business. We've talked many times before about, um, in the early days, the Roger Staubach, Drew Pearson days, where players would have to get a part time, or get a full time job in the off season. Drew Pearson, who's the Hall of Fame wide receiver, in the off season had a job unloading trucks because he had bills to pay and he didn't make enough playing football. Roger Staubach got into real estate and actually built his own real estate empire and became the first $1 billion athlete in the history of sport. But he did it because of his real estate empire, not because of his playing days.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are smart, if you're blessed with and have worked and are lucky, and all the stuff lines up for you and you become a professional athlete with the ability to make that kind of money, hopefully somebody in your group, you're going to have a lot of people hanging on, what they traditionally call yes men, right? Just to tell you yes to everything, and you're wonderful and you're great and you're going to be at the top of the game for the rest of all of eternity. Um, if you have somebody real in your corner, a lot of times people will refer to a parent, or close family friend or somebody who kept them grounded and made them realize your time to make that kind of money is so short.
Mm.
Don't do anything to mess it up. Don't make any headlines with your stupid choices. Save your money, invest your money, and you're set for life. And they've written books about people who did the opposite of all of those things and blew their fortune. And so, yeah, easy answer for me. If there's some other league and I can't make as much money and have as much exposure, and I'm figuring you're talking about being an athlete like who's popular enough that you're doing
Hmm.
commercials and all of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not jumping off that ship. I'm riding. I'm riding that for as long as I possibly can until the day when they drag me out and say, "Look, you've been replaced by the newest thing."
Then I suppose you wouldn't be swayed whatsoever by the Lando Norrises of the world who are encouraging Max to retire in all likelihood, because that means so Lando Norris right now is kind of in a position as the excuse me while I try not to throw up saying this reigning Formula One champion.
Uh,
Um, he's like the little brother that finally beat the older brother and the dad at Mario Kart, and now
sure.
he's encouraging them both to stop playing so that he can keep winning.
Yeah, of course.
Um, it's annoying. That guy just gets more and more unlikable every time he opens his mouth.
I think I think just to complete the thought,
Mm-hmm.
if you are Max Verstappen,
Mm-hmm.
if you are Michael Jordan, if you are Tom Brady, the people that typically get the conversation as being the GOAT, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're the GOAT, at one point Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali, I mean everybody knows the names. Um, if at one point you are the GOAT in your sport and you've been paid like it and you've received so much money through your sport from your team, through endorsements, that you could never find a way to spend all the money that you've made. Your great 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 grandchildren don't ever have to work because of what you have achieved and what you accumulated. Maybe at that point, if you want to make a statement and say, "Yeah, I'm not good with these rules. I'm going to step away because I don't need the money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the fame. I'm already locked in for the Hall of Fame. I don't really care about adding more statistics and that kind of thing." Um, I think that people that have the ability to do that are really unique.
They are.
Most players and most drivers and most athletes are, again, in that we're in this window, however big that window is, of earnings. And just to throw this out there because it's an interesting contrast. You and I both are really well aware of the name Colt McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
Colt McCoy was a really wonderful quarterback at the University of Texas. He probably could have, in my opinion, should have won a national championship against Alabama in 2009. Um, Except he got hurt. He got a shoulder stinger and his whole arm went numb in the first quarter against Alabama. And Texas had to put in a freshman quarterback who'd never played before and still were close in the fourth quarter. I think with Colt McCoy being a senior and everything else in that game, I think that Texas wins a national championship and becomes the Alabama of the 2010s instead of Alabama. But aside from that, the reason I bring up Colt McCoy, he was drafted second or third round by Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
He did not have the measurables. Colt McCoy's, I don't know, 6'2", 210. He's not 6'5" and 230, but still, he was a really good quarterback. What they call a gamer, right?
Yeah.
He had a good enough arm. He didn't have an arm that made everybody go wow. He had good mobility. He didn't have, uh, you know, Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson moves.
Mhm.
But Cleveland drafted him, and he started as a rookie because Cleveland never has a good quarterback, and he was good. And he won some games. He beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they were pretty good that year. Bottom line is, after a year, they decided to go draft the next guy in line who had more measurables, and Colt McCoy became a career backup in the NFL. He just retired a year or two ago. Colt McCoy was in the NFL for eh, somewhere between 12 and 15 years as a backup quarterback. He would occasionally pop up, and it seemed like whenever he did, the team he was playing for happened to be playing our beloved Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
And Colt McCoy would throw for 3 touchdowns and beat the Cowboys. And then he'd go back to the bench when the starter, got healthy again. But Colt McCoy, because he was a backup quarterback for so many years, I would venture to say he probably made $50 million
I
uh,
believe
over
so. I believe I
over the
heard.
course of his career,
Hmm.
and he did it quietly.
Yeah. They say the backup quarterback is the best job on the planet.
Yeah, and he was the guy. He was actually kind of what they in basketball they refer to him as a gym rat. The guy who just hangs out and works out because he likes it.
Mm.
He loves the sport. And Colt McCoy, I know he's retired now because he's back trying to help the University of Texas in some capacity. I don't know if he's a paid coach or a volunteer coach or an advisor or something, but he's back on campus along with Vince Young. They're all trying to help UT get over that hump, and that's a whole other discussion. But so there's different ways and different methods um, of guys when it comes to that window of opportunity to make money. Colt McCoy probably could have said, "Hey, I was a starter in Cleveland. I was pretty good. I'm going to hold out for starter money," and maybe he doesn't get signed by anybody as a
Yeah,
backup. But
maybe so.
Colt McCoy, if nothing else, he's a smart guy, and he said, "Look,
Hmm.
what am I going to do? Quit? And if I can't be a starter, am I going to quit and go work, in some cubicle in someone's office making money
Hmm.
for them? Or can I, I guess he could try to be a coach somewhere or whatever else,
Or you
but
could start a podcast.
he could start a podcast. We know you're just making money hand over fist, and thank you for all the people who are sending in donations, uh, and
Yeah.
and paying for the up level subscriptions. Maybe someday, man.
Hmm. Maybe someday also we'll find a way to do this live once we have a substantial enough audience that we could get a live stream going and have live questions coming in. I think that would really add to the show.
Yeah. Love the whole live questions. I've done a few in my lifetime, either over the internet or in person. Not
Mhm.
not about sports, but
Yeah.
in my actual career, where uh, did you ever tell your listeners even what I do?
I don't think I did.
Ah, oh my goodness. Should we keep them guessing or should we tell them?
That's up to
Um,
you.
yeah,
I'm not going to tell 'em my career
yeah. Yeah, we'll keep them guessing for a while,
for now.
but yeah, I don't care.
Maybe
I
that'll be
don't.
a live question.
Yeah, maybe that will be.
Hmm.
Maybe someday someone will go, "What do you actually do for a living?" Because it's not podcasting, not yet,
Not yet.
but
Maybe it will be by the time we get asked that.
maybe it will be. I,
Mm.
I would look forward to that day. But
I still need to read that
um,
book you gave me.
yeah, well, I got it for you for a reason for
Hmm.
Christmas. Yeah, so
Hmm.
do what you can with it. So
Yeah.
yep. So I
Um,
think we've exhausted our topics, and I think we've.
well, we still had the one thing that I had the idea for a couple days ago. I don't think it'll take very long.
Oh, all right. Well,
Hmm.
throw it out there and let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I had the idea a couple days ago because I obviously, like many sports fans, own my fair share of merchandise of teams and players and athletes that I personally like to support and show my support for, and I thought it might be fun, considering and I figure you as well, own enough merchandise spread across enough athletes to create a top 5 favorite list just of athletes that you personally own merchandise bearing the likeness in one way or another of.
Sure.
Um, and so I figure well, we can start with our 5th favorite and rise up the ranks, and I'll let you go first because I actually have my camera on and I have all of the merchandise in one way or another ready to show off.
Well, let me think real quick about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 6.
Okay, I can do a 6th really
Yeah,
quick. I can do
I
a
mean,
6th. I just don't have the jersey ready.
yeah,
Like it's in my
I mean,
closet, but I can talk
well, I
about it.
mean, I think it's worth mentioning
Sure.
that in my closet, I have got a Kansas City Chiefs long sleeve red T-shirt, and part of the reason I have it is because there was a year when I was coaching just regular flag football, and the Cowboys team had already been chosen. And so this was about the time that Patrick Mahomes was coming along. And so they said, well, you got to pick another team other than the Cowboys. So I said, well, I'll take the Chiefs. So I've got a Chiefs t shirt in my closet. Um, I have. I'm pretty sure there have been a couple of Chiefs Super Bowls that I've pulled it out of the closet and put it on. So that would be my number 6.
Sure. Do you not have a Mahomes jersey?
I don't believe that I've ever
Uh,
invested in a Mahomes jersey now.
well, I know you have, just maybe not for yourself, because I have one in my closet there. He's not my number 6. He might be my 7th or something. But
Okay.
for my number 6, if it's my turn, I wasn't anticipating having a top 6. I only pulled out stuff for a top 5, but sitting in my closet, hanging up there, I have a Michael Irvin jersey that I got for Christmas one year.
Jeez, he only
Obviously.
gets 6? Wow. Okay.
Hmm?
He only gets number 6?
He
The
was gonna get
playmaker?
he was gonna get number 5 originally, but I mean, I'm a quarterback, so I'm gonna gravitate towards the quarterback, and you're gonna see one
Yeah.
in a minute here when we get to number 4.
Okay. So my number 5, and no, I'm not walking up to my closet and pulling them out. And
Well, your
as you
camera's
notice,
off, so it wouldn't matter.
well, I was going to say, you notice I keep my camera off. I kind of like the mystery behind it.
Oh
Um,
boy.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, my number 5, uh, the reason I don't wear this very often, it doesn't have anything to do with the player. It's the fact that I think I bought. It's not even the wrong size. It's just the wrong fit. It's too slim. It's too tight on me. Um, it's technically my size, but just the cut. Sometimes the maker. I've got a number 22, one of the triplets, Dallas Cowboys, all-time leading rusher. I've got an Emmitt Smith jersey that, I really don't wear it that much just because it's not comfortable in the cut and the fit. But of course, why? I mean, Dallas Cowboys all-time leading rusher. Of course, I've got his jersey.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, for my number 5, I actually don't have a jersey or anything. I do. We do have. I know you have this shirt as well because we both got it while we were at the Pro Football Hall of Fame one time on a college visit. Actually, well, we weren't on a college visit to the Hall of Fame. We were on a visit to a school in Ohio that was close enough to the Hall of Fame that while we were in the state, we stopped by and visited the Hall of Fame and went to the gift shop, of course, and
Of course.
but this little piece of merchandise has nothing to do with the Hall of Fame. In fact, it happened before this man was even in the Hall of Fame. I've got to show off for show and tell a little Drew Pearson autographed picture, a piece of paper printed out of the Hail Mary catch after he caught the ball and strutted into the end zone, and
That's right.
got some Vikings defenders looking like they're not very happy with him for something that they probably think that he did. Couldn't imagine what.
And
Um,
what is it? What does it say? We
Says
Can't
to
read.
Michael, Hail Mary, buddy. Drew Pearson, 88. I
Yeah,
still very vividly remember standing in, what was it, like a home theater store or whatever that he was doing a meet and greet at. We got
it
there a
was.
couple hours, huh?
It was, and we
Yeah.
got there early, and we
Mm-hmm.
were the first in line. And he, the very first thing that Drew did was take off his Super Bowl ring and hand it to
Mm-hmm.
you, and say,
Mm-hmm.
"Here, put this on." I
Well,
mean,
no, no.
what
The
a
very first thing when he walked in the door, he saw me standing right there, like right across from the door. He walked over because I was wearing a Roger Staubach jersey, and he
oh
gave me a
yeah,
fist bump, and then he like went to the bathroom or something before we got started.
sure,
I also have a football signed by him, but it was too much hassle to go grab it because I got some stuff sitting on top of the case.
yeah,
Um,
okay,
I pulled the picture off the wall, so there's that for my number 5.
yeah,
And he only gets number 5 because honestly, mostly just because of the lack of merchandise I have for him.
yeah, great guy though.
Oh yeah.
In addition to being a Hall of Famer, just always class,
hmm
and just well, I'm gonna get to him on my list,
Oh yeah.
but I guess we're up to number 4 on the
hmm
merchandising list. I went out during the height of the triplets, and because when I played, I wore number 88, and Michael Irvin for the Dallas Cowboys wore number 88. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a
hmm
great motivational speaker. And I've got a Michael Irvin jersey. And from time to time, if I'm trying to wish the Cowboys luck in a game and the shirt that I'm wearing is not working, I'll go in and put on my Michael Irvin jersey. So he's pretty easily my number 4. I like the fact with Irvin that he is still so connected with not only the Miami Hurricanes that he played college football for. I mean, he's on the sideline for the national championship game that they lost, but he will show up on Cowboys sidelines. I mean, he's such a loyal, good, motivational guy. I can't think of many people that are more motivational in their speaking even after their NFL careers were over. And during his NFL career, this dude was tough as nails. So he's my number 4.
Absolutely, and it's awesome that you say tough as nails because that kind of relates well into my number 4. Obviously, as a quarterback, I will tend to be a fan of quarterback of more than just the Dallas Cowboys, and one particular quarterback that unfortunately even though he played forever, I didn't get to really watch him play live because he did end up eventually retiring for not even the first time, but the last time, just around the turn of when I started watching football, and that is the all-time interception leader, Brett Favre.
Yeah.
Um, I forget, did
Or
I get this jersey for Christmas or something? I know you
I
got
think
it for me, I
so.
think.
Yeah, I'm sure I got it for you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Obviously, it's impossible nowadays to talk about Brett Favre and not like at least bring up or acknowledge the fact that he's had his name in the news after his playing career for not the best reasons. Obviously, disregarding all of that because that's not my fight to argue over. Just I support what he did on the field, and I still believe in him as a decent guy, decent Christian conservative guy, and so I feel like he'd be the type of guy I'd like to go toss a ball with in the backyard. You know?
Oh, of course. Um, we get to number 3, and now we get up to uh, it's so hard to differentiate because there's the respect for an athlete. There's respect as a human being,
Mm.
uh, and are we're I'm assuming that we're limiting this to NFL.
No.
Um, oh, okay. Well, that just created a new problem for me um, because there's one
Do you want to have
athlete.
a 3A and 3B? Because I think there are
Yeah.
two people that I know you're going to talk about.
Well,
You have 4 people left. I know you do.
I've got one, two. Three, four. Yes,
Two
I
of
do.
them. Two of them have to do with Chicago.
They do. And
Go get it
two,
out of your
two of
system.
them.
3A and 3B.
Yeah, I think I'm going to skip three, and I'm going to go to the two that are tied for number two
Hmm.
on my list, and then the two that are tied for number one.
Okay. Makes
So
sense.
let's move. I mean, move Michael Irvin up to number three. Um,
Sure.
so since I'm skipping number three, if you have a number three, you go with your number three, and then I'll talk about my two number
Sure.
two.
I'll
Yeah.
go with my number 3. I've actually been wearing the hat the whole time. This logo doesn't really mean a whole lot if you don't know what it is. This is actually the logo of one Mr. Charles Leclerc of Ferrari fame.
Huh.
My second favorite Formula One driver. Very, very, very talented. Also very unlucky in his career, always having to play second fiddle at best to a certain Dutch guy that we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
Very,
Okay.
very talented. One of the only, definitely the best in terms of racing wheel to wheel against Max. A lot of people, when they come up against Max Verstappen on track, they always seem to put it simply, they get got. You know,
Yeah.
Max pulls some trick out of his bag to make his opponent look embarrassed. But Charles seems to hold up the best against him, partially due to the fact that they grew up racing go karts against one another. So,
Okay. Um, so we get up to my number two, and it's so tough again when you get to my top four because the respect and appreciation I have for each of these four runs really deep. But if you're not a Dallas Cowboy, you're not going to get number one.
mm-hmm.
I don't care. I don't care who you are. But you're right. My two number twos both happen to play in Chicago, and they play different sports. The first, of
Same
course,
position
is
though.
yeah.
No,
Well,
that was a
no,
joke.
yeah. Um, the first one is number 34 for the Chicago Bears. They referred to him as Sweetness. His actual name is Walter Payton. I have his jersey. I have his picture up in my dude room, which he's like one of the only non Dallas Cowboys. Well, both of these guys have their photo up in my dude room. Um, Walter Payton is the purest football player I've ever seen. He played with the most heart. Uh, just everybody, even teams that were trying to tackle him, loved him. He was fun. He was a prankster with his teammates. He left us way, way too early in 1999, I think it was. I've read his autobiography. Just everything about Walter Payton is just phenomenal. His athletic ability and who he was as a guy. They name the Walter Payton Man of the Year in the NFL to the guy who does the most for his community, and so just the love for Walter is immeasurable, and the respect for him is just immense. And tied for a second, and so of course I have a Walter Payton jersey and a Walter Payton picture, and also a jersey and a picture I have up in my dude room. Also played in Chicago. He didn't play football, but the most phenomenal athlete I've ever seen. You can tell me about Bo Jackson. You can tell me about Usain Bolt, and of course they're in the conversation. But I've never seen anybody who could do anything as well as Michael Jordan back during the day. They overhyped him. He was on every commercial, but he literally was just from another planet. And so, of course, I've got a number 23 Chicago Bulls jersey. Um, I liked him more as a player than I have in retirement. His Hall of Fame speech to me was, uh, I was very disappointed in it. He was a little bit too in your face to everybody. Uh, but from the standpoint of being a competitive athlete, and this is a time when Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, and I mean, there were so many Kobe Bryants were out there. There's just not another athlete I've ever seen. And I don't think I'll ever see another athlete like Michael Jordan. So that's my number two, Walter Payton and Michael Jordan. Your turn.
Well, getting to my two, and truth be told, while I was sitting here, I was thinking, well, it's not quite fair to put this man at number two, considering the role that he's had in my life, despite the fact that he retired, what, 29, 29, no, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame 29 years before I was born. He retired. No, that's false. No, my math is wrong. Forgive me. He retired 25 years before I was born, or so. Um, it's not fair to put this guy at two. So I am going to shift to a 1A and 1B.
Okay.
Because my top two play very different sports. That they're
Sure.
so different. Also, one, it's not necessarily fair because one of them is current. And so I discovered them on my own, independent of any sort of upbringing or indoctrination, if you will, into a certain fandom. But
Sure.
the one of my 1A and 1B that I will speak on first is
That's
Roger
right.
Staubach. I have one of my
That's the
two
guy. Yep.
jerseys. Yep, this is the guy.
Yep.
I actually had two Roger Staubach jerseys. This one I purchased with my own money, I believe, because I outgrew my other one that I got when I was in like middle school or something. That I got when it was too big for me, and then it quickly became too small for me, and so I got this kind of
And
more old style.
tell the people who are your age who never saw this guy play. They didn't grow up listening to me talk about him. And maybe they haven't YouTubed and understand. They go, well, we look at his numbers and he threw for a lot less yards than
Threw for
got.
22,700 yards exactly in his
Yeah,
career.
but you got to understand he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He had a
Yeah.
military commitment after winning the Heisman Trophy. He was a rookie at 27,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was splitting time with Craig Morton. So he really didn't become a starter and a star until he was about 30. And there was a time when the NFL didn't throw the ball the way that they do now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
what was special about Staubach that you know? I mean, you've researched it.
He obviously his raw counting stats meaning like how many total passing yards, how many total touchdowns he threw are not extremely impressive.
No.
Albeit now, yes, he played in an era that was a lot harsher on offenses. The defenses could be a lot more. Well, they could play a lot harder. They were a lot less.
They could hit you 3 seconds after you release the ball.
There were a lot fewer rules protecting the offense, and so it was objectively harder to play offense in the NFL in the 70s when Roger played. As well, yeah, he played in an era where the passing was not what it is now, obviously, and so he didn't put up the monster stats that people that even aren't even considered like all-time greats like Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan, still great quarterbacks, of course, but like I don't think anyone's ever going to say that Matt Ryan was a better quarterback than Roger Staubach.
No way.
Even though Staubach never won an MVP, I keep looking at my jersey. He never won an MVP, never was first team All-Pro, which is insane. But one thing, if you do want to look at stats, because obviously there's only so much that looking on YouTube at 50-year-old highlight reels will tell you. He retired as the NFL's all-time leader in quarterback rating.
Yes, he did. Yes, he
He
did.
was he was arguably the most efficient passer of the football of all time. He didn't necessarily throw the football the most or the farthest or
Yeah,
anything like that. They didn't rely on his arm the same way that, say, the Vikings of that day relied on Fran Tarkenton,
of
or
course
the
not.
Colts of a decade prior relied on the arm of Johnny Unitas.
Right.
You know, if you want to talk about other revolutionary quarterbacks from that time period, you know, Tom Landry definitely didn't rely on Rodgers' arm the same way that those other quarterbacks were relied on. So
Since you're talking about Roger being, in your 1A or 1B,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kind of chime in because Roger
Mm-hmm.
is also, and I don't even know who to say who's 1A and who's 1B, but Roger's, one of my ones. I did get to see him at the end of his career. Um, didn't get to see him when he was young and scrambling around, but the thing that stood out, there's two things to me that always stood out about Roger that I haven't seen or felt since. An entire fan base that not only respects and cheers for, but they actually love a player for what he does, what he represents, and who he is as a man. Um, in all the years that Roger Staubach was famous, and there was a time when he was, arguably the most famous athlete on the planet. I mean, he was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys that were winning Super Bowls, and nobody ever had a scandalous story about Roger Staubach. He was actually a nerd. I mean, when he won Super Bowl MVP after they beat the Dolphins the first time in the Super Bowl, they wanted to give him a sports car because that was a tradition. One of the major, sports car companies would give out a sports car. And Roger had like 4 or 5 kids at the time. And he asked them, can I trade it in on a station wagon? I mean, who does that, right? So so many times we find out that our heroes are heroes when the camera's on, and then when the camera's off, they're doing bad stuff behind the scenes. And in all the years that I've been aware of Roger Staubach now since 1975, however many years that is, I've never heard
51.
one single person come forward and say, "Oh yeah, he was a bad guy behind the scenes." And he legitimately is everybody's dad, who just got up, went to work, did his job as best he could, and came home to his wife and his kids. He's been married to his high school sweetheart all these years. And so to me, he gets the extra bonus not only because of what a great athlete he was, and the fact that my favorite quote about Roger Staubach was by Charlie Waters, the strong safety for those Cowboys Super Bowl teams. Charlie Waters played defense, and he said, "You know what? As long as we had Roger on the sideline, we never thought that we were out of a game. It didn't matter the score because Roger was called Captain Comeback for a reason. I mean, he didn't come back and win every game, but he just absolutely refused to quit. He was the nerdiest of nerds off the field. But when you got on that field, man, this dude would cut your heart out to win a game." So,
One more thing on Staubach. I just had a funny thought that you were mentioning how no one ever had a bad thing to say about Roger. I remembered a story you told me one time about an interview that obviously the arch rival of the Cowboys in those in the 70s were the Washington at the time Redskins.
yes.
I still call them that.
Yep.
But they, I'm sure it must have been pregame or whatever, but they must have been playing in Washington or whatever, and they had a Redskins fan that got close enough to the microphone that they stuck it in his face, and they were
Yes.
like, "Well, why don't you like the Cowboys?" And he was like, "I don't like Strasburg."
Strasburg. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Couldn't even pronounce his
I
name.
just had the thought that I like to imagine that he intentionally mispronounced his name because no one could ever bring themselves
No,
to say
no,
something negative about Staubach.
nah. I disagree. I think that this particular guy, he was a Redskins fan and he was an idiot.
I
And
know.
he
I know.
he couldn't
It's
he
just a nice
couldn't.
thought that I had.
No.
I'm not
Rod,
expecting a Redskins fan to be smart.
I know. Um, Roger Staubach will now and forever have my heart and my
Mm-hmm.
respect.
Yeah.
Uh, just as a guy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even if he wasn't an athlete, if he was my next door neighbor, I would think the world of him. And how many athletes can you say that about? Um, so, all
Yeah.
right. Well, we've come back to, we both had our 1A and 1B,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not even saying Staubach is 1B. Do you
I'm
want
not
to?
saying that either.
Yeah. Do you want to throw out the other one of your ones, or you want me to first?
You go first.
Okay, because I'm looking because my phone is running out of juice.
Oh.
Um, Anybody who's ever known me knows that the very first game that I ever watched in football, I was 10 years old. It was 1975. It was the wild card playoff game of the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, that exactly. Dallas Cowboys and Minnesota Vikings. And up until then, my parents had watched a lot of football, and I heard about Dallas Cowboys, but I hadn't really watched a game. I wasn't old enough to understand it. But at 10 years old, we were living in Fort Lewis, Washington, just outside of Tacoma, and they had the football game on. And for whatever reason, that day I decided to sit down and watch. And the Cowboys were pretty big underdogs to the Vikings. The Vikings had a better team. But um, I watched the game. It was not particularly high scoring or anything. It was Cowboys were winning it. 10-7 late, and then the Vikings scored to make it 14-10 with 2 minutes to go. And Roger Staubach, who we've already talked about, was the quarterback for the Cowboys, and he decided to start, or he just said, the game's on the line. I got to throw to my best guy. He started throwing to number 88. They've been covering up number 88 all game long. He didn't have a catch before that drive, but he had every yard on that drive. And the number 88 we're referring to is Drew Pearson, who was an undrafted free agent out of Tulsa University, who had to fight and scratch and claw to even make the team. And just because of injuries, wound up getting a lot of playing time. And they found out that this man, he had bird legs, by his own admission. In his autobiography, he talks about it. He's skinny little legs. He wasn't a really super big guy. He wasn't a super fast guy, but he just had more heart than everybody else and more courage. He'd go across the middle and take that big hit and bounce back up. And they called him Mr. Clutch, because he just had this magical ability with the game on the line. Whatever you needed, he would make that catch. So Staubach starts throwing to Drew Pearson. A couple of pretty remarkable catches to even one on fourth down where he had the magical toe tap just beyond the markers to get him a first down. And then with 24 seconds or so to go, Roger launches what became known as the first Hail Mary. He pump fakes left to draw the free safety, Paul Krause, over, and then he launches the ball back to the right. Drew Pearson runs a turn in takeoff. As I was sitting there watching that as a 10-year-old boy, as a 10-year-old boy could do, I said, if the Cowboys come back and win this game, whoever wins it for them is going to be my favorite player for life. Well, it turns out it took two of them, so it was Staubach and Pearson. Roger launches the ball as far as he could under the conditions. It was about 50 yards, and it was a little bit underthrown, and Drew Pearson pinned it at his hip at the 7 yard line. And Minnesota Vikings fans who say that he pushed off, I'm sorry he didn't. I've seen it in slow motion. He dances in the end zone for a touchdown. Cowboys win the playoff game, and forever, I wanted to be number 88. I wanted to be a wide receiver. I wanted to be catching passes from Roger Staubach. And every time I ever put on a jersey, pretty much after that, I was playing wide receiver and I was wearing number 88. And I've gotten to meet and interview, because I used to be in the news media. I got to interview Drew Pearson and tell him that story. I've got pictures of me and Drew Pearson. And so, who else could be at the top of my list except the original number 88, who is the guy that I wanted to be growing up? And by the way, just like Staubach, nobody's ever had anything bad to say about Drew Pearson. He's a genuinely good, decent guy, and thank God they finally put him in the Hall of Fame. He certainly deserved it. Your turn.
Well, I don't think I have a whole 5 minute plus story about it. Just it was it was around my second semester of college in in it was the spring semester of 2024. I was scrolling on social media, and I kept seeing these I had already been into cars. I love playing Forza. I had my Corvette, obviously, so I'm still obviously a fan of cars, but I didn't really watch racing per se, professional racing. And I kept seeing these reels with this little old song about this one particular racing driver, almost used as like a meme. I was like, well, what's this all about? And so I go look on my Xbox one day, and I happen to see, oh, I can download F1 23 for free with EA Play or whatever subscription that I have. So I download it and I play it some, and it's about February or March or so, around that time. And just so happens that the 2024 Formula One season happens to be about to start. And I, keep, obviously, when you like stuff on social media, it tends to, the algorithm tends to go, oh, you like this, oh, let me feed you more of this, keep you hooked. And so the more I liked it, the more I kept seeing it, and the more I kept seeing it, the deeper into it I fell. And that ended up in me buying this shirt. um yeah, obviously I've talked about him for, probably, if you add up all the time that I've spoken about Max Verstappen on this podcast, it's well over 2 hours at this point. And
Oh,
that's
sure.
just what I've said on the podcast. I mean, I have one, two, three hats that are specifically of him, two other Red Bull hats. I have one, two, three, four, five, six, maybe seven shirts of his, including this one. Um, yeah, he is, obviously, for all the love I have for all the legendary football players that that I've learned about through you telling me, and even the current ones that or recently retired ones that I got to actually watch, like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, all them, all the love and respect I have for them. Obviously, there is a special place in my heart for particularly Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, because that's something I found on my own, kind of, and so
Sure.
it feels in a different way special to me. So yeah, obviously my other one is Max Verstappen, and
Okay. The funny thing is, we start talking about players or drivers or athletes or whatever that we have a lot of respect for, and uh, there have been so many nights that you and I have done this off podcast where we look up and 3 hours has gone by. In this case, though, because of the podcast and we're doing this on our phones, I'm looking and I've got about 2% left on my phone.
oh no,
Yeah, and wow,
why don't
had
you
no
plug
idea
in
we
your
were.
phone?
Well, I didn't know we were going to go for an hour and a half. So,
Oh well.
um, yeah. So I'm going to sign off and say good night
Mm-hmm.
and and God bless.
Hmm.
And
I'll
you know,
close this out.
yeah,
Okay. Well, uh, are you still here? It still says you're here.
yeah,
Oh,
barely.
okay. Do you want me to just like shut it, like close it out
Yeah.
really quick while you're still
Say
here? I
so.
was kind of
Thanks for
expecting you.
joining us. Peace out.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to come back next week if you are seeing this and you have a question you want us to address. Obviously, leave a comment on either YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're seeing this, and we'll be sure to address it. We love taking audience questions. But without any further rambling, thank you and good night.
Yeah. Peace out. God bless.
Mhm.